Imagine your grandfather died and you go and find that he wrote a book, handwritten, which is one copy, and contains the most useful, the most applicable, the most concepts snapping in place, understanding the world and people, notions ever. And you're like, oh my god, this is so incredibly true. Obviously, also your first intuition is everybody needs to read this. Not only because it's good for them, but because within those concepts exist the language, the terminology, the mental models to understand the world, and people need to learn the terminology. It's like, it's like nobody uses the word love, and actually this book explains the concept of love or the concept of consciousness or the concept of, I don't know, some nuanced concepts like regret, and imagine that the society doesn't use them, and there they are. So this is a little bit how I feel at two levels. The level that you can empathize is reading the book What is Our Problem of Tim Urban. He provides a vocabulary and some notions that help understand the world, and especially politics, debates, psychology. And I would like to be able to use those little figures and characters like the lawyer or the rational decision maker or the fog. But I already forgot the concepts because I want to talk about them with people. It's been like 3 years since I read it. And nobody has read this book. I looked now at Amazon. It has 2,000 reviews, mostly 5-star, of course. But within my social circle, it's nobody even knows Tim Urban and Wait But Why, much less has read this book. If it was a book as popular as the Bible, then I could use the parables, I could reference to its parables, and comes the philosophical question. I cannot speak. Does that make them more true by the fact that they are more practical? So a biblical story or a religious story, which is a very deep, condensed, time-tested fiction that helps us understand things about the world and about ourselves, I would argue more truthful than Tim Urban's fictions. Even if Tim Urban's fictions are much more useful to me because I read them, they're not more useful in my daily life because I cannot communicate them with people. So this is a clumsy way to say that the popularity of the language makes it useful. It's like if I'm in a new social network that has the best features and it's the most wholesome and useful and productive and amazing, but nobody is on that social network, it's almost useless to me. If I have invented a language that communicates insight and understanding much more efficient than English, for example, how beautiful or good that is, somebody can appreciate it as art, but nobody's using it. So the truth of a notion, I'm trying to explore the concept of truth for my February art collection. The popularity of a notion is affecting its validity, and validity is a big element of truth. Let's say there is two stories. One is more accurate factually, but the other is much more popular. I could argue that the more popular story is more useful by the fact that it's more popular, even if it's only 80% as accurate or 80% as efficient. So yeah, if I could hot swap the stories, if I could hot swap the notions of the Bible or of the Holy Quran or of some other, or of Harry Potter for that matter, if I could hot swap the notions of Harry Potter, there you go, it's not controversial, in the public consciousness with the notions of Tim Urban's What's Our Problem, I would do it immediately. Because there is fiction that has similar effect to Harry Potter, I guess. I don't know, Lord of the Rings or some Star Trek war sagas. I don't follow so much of those. So I think people would be okay if Harry Potter didn't exist. I mean, would the world be a worse place if Harry Potter, which I have read and I like, didn't exist? Slightly. But would the world be a much better place if everybody knew and used the vocabulary that Tim Urban has invented? I would argue yes. If this thing was taught in junior high school, which is perfect level for that, we would be so much better off. Okay? So this is to praise the work of Tim Urban and to say that weirdly, his words would be more truthful if they were more popular by the sheer fact that popularity and use, actual everyday use of the notions, makes something good more truthful. You can argue with that. Maybe you can disagree. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but this is my understanding of it. And that relates to my personal work. So I work on concepts that, just like Tim Urban's vocabulary, I find useful for myself. I create toolkits and models of simplifications of how the world works to understand it, which are a bit more nuanced than what we use in our everyday life, but still very accessible and very easy to consider in real time, which is, for example, my truth diagram, or the separation between ideas, sanctity of individual actions, speech being the interface of ideas and actions, ego being the interface between ideas and sacred being. This is the thing I'm working on in February Art. But my point, as I'm thinking right now, is that to validate my own concepts and models, I should strive to make them as popular as possible. And obviously people can say, oh, it's completely nonsense. That doesn't help me at all. Just like they can say about holy texts, for example. But if there's a kernel of wholesome civilization building power, character building power, strength, utility of my concepts, which I believe there may be, that's why I'm making them and promoting them, then the only way to do what they are made for is to show them on your faces. And this channel has 3 subscribers, so I should, disgustingly enough, start seeking to be visible, which is not my style, but it doesn't matter because this is what my work demands. So I've been quite hesitant to do that, but I think I have to do it. Because one of the easiest ways to shove content in the face of people and they cannot look away is sex, like boobies, like, I don't know. And sneakily enough, brands may do it, especially women. Like, you see women coincidentally wearing something attractive to the eyes and be like, no, I'm here to communicate science. And if you like the way I look, it's a happy coincidence. No. I want to be on the nose about it. Well, I don't have this conundrum. I'm not a hot woman, so I cannot even be tempted to use my looks to, come for the boobies, stay for the philosophy kind of vibe. But I think I should do the Boobsletter, Titty Tuesdays, Mondays of Meaning, 5 Bullet Fridays. I would love to do I think I have to do it, a mockery newsletter in the title and in the facade, and then put my most meaningful, my most valued and insightful things inside, but I can just draw them on boobies. So what's the harm? Come for the boobies, stay for... Actually, come for the absurdity. You can even lie to yourself that you come for the absurdity and you get the double punch benefit of a pair of drawn boobies plus the concepts. And that is to serve truth. But before you consume my content, my work, which is not even half-baked, some of it is baking, some of it is still proofing, proof of concept, proof of the dough. Do go and fucking read What's Our Problem from Tim Urban. And if the only thing I achieve by trying to promote my work is to get his book more popular, like even if 10 people read this book out of my work, that's already a win. And then I'm still good to keep not striving, but serving the inevitable urge to create something. So this is something that people around me really fail to understand, and I don't know, have they never been in that position? Some of them may not have been, maybe they cannot correlate it to my state. They see me struggling and they see me hustling or whatever, doing my art versus working, let's say, longer hours or focusing more on my engineering prospective career versus doing a simple job. And that's fair enough. But what I try to communicate is the reality is that I don't exactly struggle. Yeah, I struggle if I need to make a website or try to promote or sell something. Yeah, that's a struggle. I don't like this. But to serve the art, to serve the concepts, I'm just feeling insufficient in that, I'm made of flesh and bones and my brain is as bright as it can be, but it almost feels like this is, as a non-religious person, this is kind of a religious notion, but I need, it's my obligation, it's my duty to serve and try to develop and try to display the ideas, the notions, even some jokes, even some humor. They don't have to be philosophical. They can be notional things. Even the puns and the jokes I make that I don't see in the world. Obviously some people may have come up with similar ones, and I haven't read philosophy enough to know if I'm reinventing the wheel. So every time I have a philosophical concept that I think might be significant, and I haven't heard people talking about it in the light philosophy podcast and stuff, I try to ask ChatGPT and the other LLMs, hey, who is the thinker, the philosopher that said something like this or expressed truth as this diagram or stuff like that? And the LLMs find the work that they can that is as close as possible to my notions. And when I see that as close as possible is not capturing my point, still through the LLMs, because maybe if I had read the actual textbooks or books, I would probably see more. I'm like, I have something there. And it's not deeper, but it's better in that there is a certain combination of words and examples that refer to, that capture that meaning that the other guy needed a whole book to write, maybe. So for example, the is-out dichotomy can correlate the is, the material world, whatever that can be, other phenomenology, epistemology things. The material world is something like accuracy and also is something like autism. So accurate, material, autistic. The pathology there. Then the prescriptive world, the ethical notions correlate with utility, with practical human-centered utility, and they can also correlate toward their pathology with schizophrenia. Anyway, and then if you have the best of both worlds, if you have the most useful and the most accurate thing, so God is only super useful but not accurate at all, the existence of God as an omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, blah, blah, and we probably live in a simulation, can be accurate but even harmful as a notion to regurgitate. But if we have something like optimism, generosity, agency, and professionalism beget prosperity, bring prosperity, those are very true statements because they are very accurate and very useful. So these are closer to something like the ultimate truth versus God, which is only very useful, or we most likely live in a simulation, or some statistical differences of populations that can lead to bad tribalism if we consume them naively. So it also has to do with the context of our understanding, right? Because ideally me, who I create this diagram, should be able to have the helicopter view of anything, and then to me everything is useful if I'm always sharp, which obviously is not the case. I'm rarely sharp, so I'm still subject to the predisposition of flawed inaccuracy but pertinent and hands-on notions. Now, I'm rambling pretty much for myself, okay? I'm aware that this flow, this train of thought, is not the easiest to follow, and I don't care so much in that I make this video as a note to myself. Also, people who do work on these concepts and people who will listen to some other of my material will get something out of it as well. So this is not a horrible video, but it's not a great one either. But it's worth posting, and that I shall do.